Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unity of the Valley. If you would like, I would ask you to sing All Is Well with me, which is a rewrite of Kumbaya, so the melody should be easy to follow. All is well now, all is well, all is well now, all is well, all is well now, all is well, deep within me, all is well. So I invite you to feel that wellness flowing through you now. All is well now, all is well, all is well now, all is well, all is well now, all is well, deep within me, all is well, deep within me, all is well.
Thank you, John, and we know all is well. Well, good morning. My name is Reverend Bob Brach. I'm filling in for Reverend Dahlia. So let's open in prayer. I invite you to close your eyes and let my words be your words. On the drive down here from Sacramento, 2 verses were coming to mind. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And the other one, the Spirit of the Lord goes before me and makes my way easy and clear. And as we move through our service today, we know that the Spirit of the Lord is here in this beautiful little sanctuary and in each and every one of us. And that same Spirit goes before us as we move forward, particularly in the start of your wonderful fall series. And I envy you guys and gals being together and doing a book study. I've done that in the past. So let's open our minds and our hearts and be ready to serve and listen to the wonderful music and lessons and connecting with people here in our fellowship time afterwards as we move forward in faith with God calling us. And so it is. Amen.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center. I'm looking around. We got a fairly full sanctuary, which is proof that these wonderful temperatures and beautiful sunshine mean absolutely nothing to any of us when it's compared to our spiritual community. So thank you for being with us, and thank you, Reverend Bob Brach, for coming down here on short notice. Reverend Brach has been with us many times as a guest speaker, and we're happy, as always, to have you speak. And you may know that Reverend Brach's wife, is it Margie or Margie? Margie Brach speaks here a lot, and she's fantastic too. So I'm sure she's rubbed off on him, and we're in for a real special treat with Reverend Bob's message. And thank you, John Shin, for once again. Why do I even introduce you? John Shin's here, right? So everybody knows John, and it's going to be doing a great time. And everybody knows that we like to start our service with a young person coming forth to light the Christ candle. And this morning, it's Mina. There was some debate down there. There was some haggling going down there. But Mina is coming forward. And Mina, I want you to join me back here. We're going to light the Christ candle. And the reason we do this with a young person versus somebody old like me is that You represent that inner Christ flame that exists in each one of us. And we see that clearly. And you do this for each one of us, saying, here, people, this is what you should be acknowledging within you. Can you do that one too? And just blow it out for me. Yeah. Okay, great. Now come on forward, Mina, and I want everybody to take a look at you because you physically manifest the Christ Spirit this morning, right? You got these wonderful ears and you got this bright outfit on, and you kind of instill us with this energy like, wow, I wish I could be spontaneous and fun like Mina. And you're going to say, well, you can. You just have to let it shine, right? Do this. Say yes, right? Okay. Now, before we do the blessing, Mina is going to be joined by Bree and Danica. And if there are any other young people that would like to come forward, you're invited to, even though I don't know your names. These two strapping, handsome young men coming forward. I know these two guys. I've seen them before, right? Yeah, okay. So we are going to give, oh, my goodness, we need a bigger platform. We're going to give each one of these wonderful human beings their own special blessing. So together, join me. You are a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. You are loved unconditionally, just the way you are. Now, all those smiles that I see on people's faces looking at this crew up here, I want you to be smiling at your inner Christ and give yourself this blessing. I am a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. Very good. I am loved unconditionally, just the way you are. We're going to have a special workshop called Getting Rid of Shyness in Unity Children. Because I can see you're all just like, oh, no, no. Okay, so now John's going to lead us all in singing the young people out to their classes. I want you to stay up until we get to that second verse where it says, everywhere I go, okay? Let's go.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Everywhere I go.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let your light shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
They really did let it shine. Welcome, everybody. We hope that you're visiting for the 100th time, but if you're here for the first time, you're going to feel like you've been here 100 times because we really want you to, view this as your home as it is our home. So after the service, we have refreshments across the hall here in the great hall, and you're welcome to stay and dine with us. And if you have any questions about what Unity stands for, please ask anyone around you. If they don't have an answer, they can find somebody who does have an answer. And even if we don't have an answer, we'll make one up for you to get you to come back. And we'd also like to welcome each and every one of you that are joining us from home on our live stream. Although we'd much prefer to see you down here, we understand that circumstances may not allow that, but we'd like to see you through that little video device that you're watching us right now. Well, okay. So each and every Sunday we have prayer chaplains available for you, and this morning they're standing. We have Cheryl Potts and Pat Flores, or maybe only one of them, looks like this morning.
I see Pat.
What's that?
I see Pat.
Yeah, no, so we have a prayer chaplain here for you. So our prayer chaplains are here to pray with you, to offer your prayer for anything that may be weighing on your mind, a celebration you'd like to share, something that's weighing heavily on your heart. They're here in strict confidence to serve you, so please make good use of them. And beginning this week is our fall reflection series, and this fall it's called Have a Little Faith. So, like I said, it begins September 17th is today, but I don't think a class begins today. But this week, the small group meetings are starting. There are sign-up sheets out in our great hall. So after the service, please go, see if you can find a place or a time that you can join these wonderful groups. It's a great way to get to know your community a little bit more intimately, and it's usually a lot of fun. So please take advantage of that. And we have a big thank you to say to our yard sale team and our Bunko Bash team. And on my announcements, I had a bunch of names. Cindy Hulbert was one of them. And just raise your hand. Who are the yard sale people, first of all? Okay. So yard sale people, Bunko Bash people. Would you left hand, Lucy? There you go. Okay, Bunko Bash people.
The other left hand.
Yeah. So I want you to look at these numbers. Our yard sale raised $1,265.95, if I'm seeing that correctly without my glasses. And Bunko raised $2,505 for a total of $3,770. And remember what I said before, don't excuse that 95 cents. That 95 cents can go a long way. So please, a big hand for these folks. If you've ever had just a couple of people over for a dinner party, you realize how much preparation goes into it, how much cleanup follows it. And can you imagine, these are huge events, the yard sale and the Bunko. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and it's all done selflessly to support our community. So thank you to all of you that took part in that. Not only the organizers, but the people who chose to attend. Was Bunko fun? I couldn't attend. Yeah, it's always a lot. Bunko's always a lot of fun. And the less you know about Bunko, the more fun it is. That's it. So you may have noticed that Reverend Dahlia hasn't been here in a few weeks. And so she really wanted to make sure that everybody knew she's not on sabbatical. She's not in the clutches of the Grim Reaper. She has COVID, and I'm not sharing anything that I shouldn't be sharing. She's quite upfront about it. She has COVID, and she's healing well and coming along, and wanted everybody to know that she's in the spirit of healing and light, and she hopes that you hold her, as she already knows. We all hold her in healing and light, and that she'll be back soon. And she wanted this up there, the Eric Butterworth.
Everybody to know.
Right, but this quote.
That's my creation.
This is Warren put this up there, kind of so that Reverend Dahlia would have her own little sermon today, even though she's not there. And I can't read it. The healing stream of life is really behind every appearance. I can read it. I'm just going to squint a little bit more. The means used may be many and varied, but the power behind every healing is the truth of wholeness, the truth of the wholeness of the universe, the truth of my wholeness. Yes, so we say amen to that. Amen. And we look forward to seeing you, Reverend Dahlia, if you're watching from home. And so each and every Sunday, we'd like to deepen our sense of community, deepen our understanding of the inner living Christ, and we do so by praying together with the statement of faith. So together, there is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good. And now John's going to drive that point home with some music.
Yeah, I think I'm going to steal a little bit from Eric Clapton here for this one. Lately I've been running on faith. What else can a poor boy do? But my world would be right when love comes over me. Lately I've I've been talking in my sleep. Can't imagine what I'd have to say, except my world would be right. When love comes back my way. But I've always been one to take each and every day. It would seem like by now I'd find the woman who'd care just for me, and we'd go running on faith. All of our dreams would come true, and our worlds would be right. Love comes over me and you. Love comes over me and you. Let it flow. Oh, love comes over you. Love comes over you. Let love come over you. Love come over you. Love comes over you. Oh, love comes over you.
Great music, John. Thank you. Wow. Well, it's good to be back here. I enjoy it. And seeing the little ones and that little light of mine, man, it warms my heart. You know, a lot of the centers that I guest speak at, they don't have the youth ed. And to see that, I mean, that's the future of our unity. So bless you for keeping that flame alive here in Vacaville. Well, earlier this week, Dahlia called me and she let me know she had COVID and asked if I would stand by. And she let me know on Friday if she wasn't going to be able to make it. So sure enough, Friday night she called me and said, I can't make it. And she really wanted to be here for the kickoff of your fall series. And that's another thing I like, those book studies. In the Unity Church in Modesto, where I started, we used to have those book studies in the fall. So I envy you guys and gals for getting involved in book studies. And Dahlia had mentioned the title of her talk was Called by God. And she said the theme is faith for that. And also, since you're the Bible teacher at the Unity Urban Ministerial School, I'm sure you have some wonderful Bible stories that would tie in. And I said, sure. And, as a brief aside, if you're interested in taking the SEE Spiritual Education Enrichment classes that Unity offers, Unity of Sacramento and the Urban Ministerial School in Detroit, Michigan, who I teach for, have partnered up. And this coming Saturday, they're offering an intensive class for the next 2 Saturdays, the 24th and the 30th. From 8 to 1, I'm offering the class, The Overview of Christian Scriptures. So if you wanted to know more about the New Testament, see me after the service. I'll give you a link that you can get in there and get registered. But for 5 hours on 2 Saturdays, you can get 10 hours credit for the Spiritual Education Enrichment class. And it's interesting how Spirit works. As I was going through my New Testament class that I'm teaching for the urban school, we were in the book of James. And there's a quote that really caught my attention. James, in chapter 1, verse 5 to 6, the writer of the book of James had said this: "If any of you is lacking wisdom, ask God, which gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it is yours. But ask in faith, never doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the winds." Wow, faith. And as I was getting ready for this, I was thinking about faith. And in the story of Unity, written by James Dillard Freeman, there is a chapter called Faith of the Fillmores. And we know that Charles and Myrtle were really, if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for Myrtle, we wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't be standing here. You wouldn't be sitting there. Because you heard this wonderful lecture by a guest metaphysician in Kansas City. And she heard those words, "You are a child of God." And she had been told that she had been sick, and she ended up taking it into her heart and healing herself. And Charles walks out of that same lecture, and he goes, "Hey, not bad, Myrtle." It didn't change him a bit. But boy, it changed Myrtle drastically. And one of the other Fillmores that we don't normally hear about is Lowell Fillmore. Now, he's the oldest of the Fillmore boys. And Lowell was very active in the Unity movement. He was the president of the Unity School of Christianity for a good number of years, and he ran Unity. In fact, talking about faith, one of the papers in Kansas City interviewed him and asked, "Do you have a budget?" And he goes, "No, we don't have a budget. We know what Spirit's calling us to do, and we know that money's going to be there to do it." And people are going, "What do you mean?" But Lowell, he wrote for the weekly Unity back then, in a little section called Metaphysical Musings. And let's see, he was active in getting Spanish pamphlets printed up in Unity to get the Unity message out. And also for the what they called prosperity banks, particularly in the 30s, he had these little cardboard boxes that people would put money in. So at the end of the year, they could renew their subscriptions to the Unity magazines, but it kept prosperity in their minds. I talked with Reverend Phil Pearson, and he personally knew Lowell Fillmore. And he said he was a real sweet guy. And Dorothy, his wife, late Dorothy, she shared a story with me about how she was introducing Lowell for this luncheon. And Lowell mentioned that he's been a vegetarian for over 30 years. And his younger brother, Rickert, was sitting in the audience and says, "Well, I haven't had any meat since breakfast." So not all the Fillmore people were vegetarians. But, Phil called him like the unsung hero. And in fact, Neil Volley, who has written several books on the Unity movement, Charles Fillmore, Myrtle Fillmore, also did one on Lowell, and it's actually called Unity's Unsung Hero. And it was an important book that he had written. It was called The Prayer Way to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. The Prayer Way to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And when I was in ministerial school, I volunteered to be the Unity student minister in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's about an hour and a half north of Kansas City, and where we were, Lee Summit is where we lived. But sometimes in those Missouri winters, I'm saying, why did I volunteer for this evening? But I would, on the Sundays that I couldn't speak, I would have my classmates fill in. And to keep them roped in, somebody mentioned about herding cats. Ministerial students are along the same way. I said, I need you to pick up a topic from this chapter in Lowell's book, and to keep them focusing on it, focused on the one place. In the very first chapter, it's called Positive Outlook, and there's a section called Looking for the Best. Looking for the best. And Lowell has several quotes that really caught my attention. And one of them is, everyone devotes a good deal of time to seeing with his mind's eye either the good things that he would like to attain or the unpleasant things that he would like to avoid. His mind may flit about pleasantly for a time among good things and then dart into the shadows of disturbing things. And once in a while, it may find himself held spellbound by some possibility that terrifies it. Wow. Lowell described my mind. I don't know about you, but sometimes I could be sitting in my meditation and my mind will jump back into something that, oh my God, what did you do back then? And then it can be terrifying. And it's one of our great paradoxes that, the things that we don't want to look at are things we actually have to look at to help us grow and get better. And these thoughts or feelings come in many forms. Strange images, snippets of information, some on the internet, recurring dreams, or recurring thoughts that seem to pop up for a reason, no reason. And I think of these as messengers for it to take a look at. And when these things pop up, there are emotions that need to be felt. I have this little counselor buddy who does the family systems, and when things come up in our life, where do you feel it in your body? And talk to that part and see what's coming up and actually feel that. When I was in ministerial school, we were encouraged to have an outside counselor. Going through this process of ministerial school, it's really a life-changing event. And I had this fellow called Dr. Jeff, and he's sitting there and he goes, Bob, you have a catastrophizing mind. And he said, everything you run down the road of the worst thing that can happen. I get a letter from the IRS. Oh my God, we're going to be audited. We're going to take our house and whatever. Or Margie and I have a little argument and said, oh my God, we're divorced. I'm out in the street. I'm living under W Street Viaduct. No. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but sometimes that catastrophizing mind just jumps up. Lowell had written this. The pictures in our mind, whether they be pleasant, disturbing, or terrifying, are the charts of our future life. We must learn to make our mental picture good even when their present experience seems to be bad. We can do this by seeing God as spirit, present in every experience and greater than any outer aspect of it. Wow. Well, so when things are looking out there and we say, man, this doesn't look so good, we said that affirmation of our faith. There's one presence, one power, God the good active in my life. So sometimes when I were reading the morning paper, and Margie and I would look over at me, she says, are you in the oh my section again? Because I'm going, oh my, look at all that stuff. Guess what? God is active in all this stuff. By choosing to see God in our life, like Lowell is encouraging, is a way out. One of my minister teachers used to call it OP2. One presence, one power. OP2. One presence, one power. And, seeing God in the small things, like looking around the house for, where did I put my cell phone? Where's the keys to the car? Oh my God, the checkbook, honey. All of a sudden I turn and look, and there it is, and I choose to see that my higher power, my Spirit of God is working in finding those little things. And I've learned to say, put things in a place, put everything in its place so you can find it. My goodness, so we learn. I heard a story from a friend of mine that he said he was learning to ride a bicycle. And every time he would look at something where he didn't want to go, like a telephone pole, he'd run into it. And I've heard of motocross riders that come onto a field, there's only one big rock in the center, and they run into it. I used to teach driver education when I graduated from college. I was a wrestling coach and a driver ed teacher. And I remember vividly driving down this street, and there's one car parked in the suburban street on this whole block. And I said to the young lady driving, I said, now there's a car on the side of the street. And next thing I know, she is steering right towards the car, and I got whoa. So I unconsciously told her to avoid something, but that center wants us to look at it. So then I changed my teaching. When we drive down that street, I say, now there's a car on the street, look over at the other curb, and I go right by it. I used to take horseback riding and jumping lessons, and my instructor would say, look up over the jump, because you look down, you go down. So look where you are going. Lowell had also written this: my need is to fix my attention upon the omnipresence of God's goodness so that I will run into it in that heavenly condition. My need is to fix my attention upon the omnipresence of God's goodness so that I can run into it in that heavenly condition. Wow. Emmett Fox in 1931 had written this pamphlet called The Golden Key. And you may even have it out there on a book thing or at one time, but boy, that's a wonderful, wonderful little pamphlet. And there's one central thought: stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. One of Margie's friends used to tell me when I was thinking about something, she'd say, Bob, golden key it. Look at the thing and look for the good, look for the God in it. Changing our thoughts from negative to positive is a powerful way to help us manifest our dreams. If we think that we have nothing in life or that something's going to change or go away, we tend to draw that energy to us. Lowell continues, now take your mind off those unpleasant things and put your trust in God, giving thanks because He is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient in spite of all appearances. And you will find a solution. Magnify God in your mind instead of magnifying negative ideas, and your problem will be solved. Doing this is about the most difficult thing a metaphysician has to do, yet it is the most necessary thing. Magnifying mind. Magic, magnifying mind. Goes right along with my catastrophizing mind. I can take a look at something and magnify it to the worst possible situation. One of the other things I got to do in my life was to be a Coast Guard officer. And when I enlisted, I wanted to drive a ship. But I was an enlisted man. I couldn't do that. So I ended up going to officer candidate school. It took me 5 tries, but I finally made it. And I was a young ensign, and I was on a ship out of Boston, and we were out in the North Atlantic Ocean. And I used to love old-time navigation things. And there's a thing that the old-time sailors used to do, bobbing a light. When you're sailing along coastal waters and you want to get another way of knowing where you are, you'd use this technique called bobbing the light. You look on the chart and you see the lighthouse that you know is out there somewhere on this certain bearing that saved the height of eye and how far out to sea you could see it. So I could see a lighthouse of 165 feet, 20 miles. So if I was at sea 20 miles, I should be able to see that light. But I have to add where I'm on the ship. And I knew my height of eye was like 42 feet on the bridge, plus my height, so maybe about 48, 49 feet. My horizon is about 8 feet. So about 28 miles, I should be able to see that light. And if I stepped up onto this box and seen the light, and then I stepped down and it disappeared, I knew I was probably right about that 28-mile mark. Wow. And I came across a story about somebody bobbing the light or looking higher. The Duke of Wellington, after he retired from the active service, every year he would invite his officers that were with him at the Battle of Waterloo for this huge banquet at his house. Well, this one particular year, the Duke had bought a jeweled box and it was encrusted with diamonds, really expensive. And he's passing it around to his fellow officers to look at it, and they're all, ooh, oh my. And Well, come the end of the dinner, the Duke's looking for the jewel box. And nobody seems to remember where it was or who had it last. They're looking under the tables, they're looking all over. And one of the officers says, well, everybody should be searched. 2 officers objected. This one junior officer was down at the end, and the Duke himself. He did not want to subject his officers to being degraded by being searched. So, of course, all suspicion was now at this other officer that he may have taken it. Well, several days later, the Duke is putting his uniform away, and he reaches in, and on his inside pocket is the jeweled box. He had got involved in conversation or other stuff and put it in his pocket. So he says, I need to find this officer and find out what's going on. So he searches out, and he finds this officer, and is living in a very poor part of the town, nursing his alien wife. And the Duke comes to him and says, why did you resist being searched and therefore draw suspicion to yourself that you may have taken this? And the officer says, well, sir, I had unloaded most of my food into a paper sack, and I was taking it home to feed to my sick wife, and I didn't want to do that. Wow. So the Duke had to change his sight. He had to look higher. Yes, because sometimes appearances show up, and we misjudge people by their actions rather than their intentions. And we need to take a harder look at that. So the Duke was bobbing the light. He was lifting his vision and looking up higher. And Dahlia had mentioned to me about having a Bible story, so you have one Bible story. I've been teaching Bible for urban school for over 14 years now, and I really like it. And for 14 years, I used to read the talks of Charles Fillmore. Charles was not only a Jesus Christ guy, but he was also a Bible guy. Almost all the talks that I read had some reference to Jesus or the Christ and a Bible story. And the story that came to mind is the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. And the writer of the Gospel of John tells the story kind of the best, I think. See, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived in a town called Bethany. And they were close friends of Jesus. He really loved these people. And Lazarus was sick. So Mary and Martha send a message to Jesus to come and heal Lazarus, take care of him. But Jesus says he's not unto death, and he stays 2 more days where he's at. Well, then he shows up at the house, and Mary and Martha are going, Lord, if you had been here, our brother wouldn't have passed away. And Jesus says, well, where is he? Well, he's in the tomb. And the shortest verse in the Bible, Mary said, Lord, he stinketh, because he'd been in the tomb for all these days. So Jesus says, well, roll away the stone, because they used to put people in these like sepulcher things, and they would put a stone in front of it. They rolled it away, and Jesus, in a loud voice, says, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus comes out in his grave clothes, and he says, unbind him, feed him, and let him go. So one of the interesting tools we have in Unity is metaphysical Bible interpretation. So we can look at these stories and how they apply to our consciousness, looking beyond the physical story to what those things represent in our consciousness. So Jesus usually represents that Christ spirit within us. In Mary and Martha, women usually represent the feeling nature in us. And we know in Martha, she was the one that was out in the kitchen cooking and whatever, and Mary was the one sitting at Jesus' feet listening to him. So like 2 aspects of our feelings, that service nature and the listening, caring nature. Men usually represent the thoughts. So Lazarus is this thought. So here it is, our feeling nature is having issues with some of the thoughts in our life. And we're calling out to that Christ spirit to say, come on, God, I need a little help with this. What do I do? But this Christ spirit may be saying, taking the time it takes, and it takes less time. So Jesus stayed that extra 2 days, and when he finally showed up, everything was falling in order for him to do his thing. And I think the big thing in that story is speaking with a loud voice. In our 12 power concept, the power of power is right in our throat, right? Yeah. So using our voice, using our words, praising people. If you want something, bless it and praise it. On all my assignments that I feed back to my students, I always close with blessing. So if you bless something, it will increase. All righty, so let's kind of wrap this thing up and see where we're going. Today we looked at this concept of God calling. We're looking forward to this wonderful program that you have in the fall of being in faith in action or whatever. And we looked at some of the words from Lowell Fillmore's book. We looked a little bit at catastrophizing mind. We looked at looking higher, and what we tend to look at will tend to draw to us. Concept of magic magnifying mind, catastrophizing mind. And a little story about the further you look, that you can see, like that Duke did when he looked up and actually saw what was happening with his young officer. And a story about Jesus in the Bible story, that take the time it takes, and it takes less time. A horse trainer told me that when at a horse clinic. He would say, most people quit about 5 minutes before the horse learns. So take the time it takes, and it takes less time as you move forward in your 5-week or book study and that. So, wow. So anyway, let's listen to our song about being still and move into our period of meditation.
I so much value the references to Unity Village, and this song actually emerged from the writings on the wall in a chapel in Unity Village. There's just these simple 3 words. Peace, be still.
Peace, be still, as we move into our period of meditative reflection. I invite you to close your eyes or let your gaze be softly forward, perhaps looking at that candle up there, and know that we are in the presence of Spirit. Feel the pressure of our feet on the floor, the pressure of our body against the pew. Bring our awareness to our breath. The ancient Hebrews had a word for breath, for spirit, and for wind, and that was ruach. So it could be our breath, it could be the wind, or it could be spirit. So as we inhale, as we inspire that spirit without to connect with that spirit within. And now this theme that we have been working with is called by God. Called by God. And I invite you to go with me on a little journey here and see if there is a God calling message within. So I invite you to imagine yourself at some beautiful setting, restful and peaceful, someplace where you've been on vacation or visited and you say, wow, this is really a great place. So I invite you to really feel this place, feel the temperature of the air, the condition of the weather and what it is, and if it's day or night. And we gently turn our body around a 360-degree circle and look at this beautiful, restful place. And as we gaze out over the horizon, we see a little speck way out in the distance, and we focus our vision on it. And as we focus our vision on the speck, it begins to grow larger and larger and larger. As it draws closer and closer, we begin to make out a body, a face, eyes and ears, and a mouth of some type of sentient being or sentient creature. And it draws closer and closer to us, and it stops at a distance that it and we feel safe. And as we gaze at its face there, we see its mouth begin to move, and we gently incline our ear towards it, and we listen very clearly in the silence for what the sentient being, sentient creature, has to say to us as we rest in the silence. And we notice that this creature, this sentient being, has stopped talking to us in this period of silence. We make a gentle connection with its eyes, knowing that we have heard what this creature has to say to us. As it gently backs away from us and goes back in the same direction from which it came, it draws smaller and smaller as it disappears over the horizon. So I invite you to reflect upon what image was brought to mind. Our Native American brothers and sisters used to assign animal totems that would show up in their life. And what kind of creature was that that showed up for you? And what was that message that that creature had for you as you move forward? I know that Spirit works in diverse ways and means, and perhaps this was one of them. Or perhaps later today, a phone call from a friend, an email on your computer, a movie we're watching, a book we're reading. Spirit will have some message for you of God calling you to what is yours to do as you move through this wonderful fall session. And now we bring our attention back to our physical bodies. We feel our feet on the floor, our body against the pew. And we open our eyes and we're ready for the rest of our service. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Brach, for that wonderful service. You know, every service is usually some statement that slaps me in the face. So this one was, the rider usually quits 5 minutes before the horse learns. Did you guys all hear that when he was speaking? That was one of those slap in the face moments. So thank you for that slap. Appreciate that, and I have no marks even from that slap. So you know it was a holy slap. Okay. So our ushers are down here, and we know what that means. It's time for us to bob the light and think about how we're going to stretch a little bit and be able to see the light. And there are a lot of ways to do that. You can text to give with the number that's up on the board. You can go to the Unity website, click on the donate button. Also, you can reach into your pocket, grab any loose bills, change, or write on a piece of paper to Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center, we accept that too. And remember the power of your donation, right? I talked about earlier what we raised through Bunko and the yard sale, and it's $3,000, whatever it was, and 95 cents. And it's kind of like, well, why didn't they just round up? Well, that 95 cents can go a long way. Like Reverend Bob was saying, he's bobbing the light, but if you got on the box, it goes from not being able to see the light to being able to see the light. So your donations are your way of bobbing the light for our community. And so together, I'd like us to just take a moment and bless all that's going to be given in the next few minutes with these words. Together, God's love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am and have, all that I give and receive. I am grateful.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed. Remind yourself now, sing along. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed.
I was expecting another verse. Let's go. Let's do another verse. I love that song. There's one more verse. I was hoping that they hadn't collected everything yet. So,
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed.
the only affirmation of divine substance when we give is to say, I am so blessed, I am so grateful. And so we say that. Let's just say that together instead of the affirmation. I am so blessed, I am so grateful. And now we'd like to conclude our service by asking people to stand as you're able. We're going to form our circle. You can hold hands or not hold hands. If you're not comfortable holding hands, just keep your hands folded in front of you. If you want to hold hands, stretch them out. Somebody will either hold your hand or not. And when we're ready, John's going to lead us in the peace song.
On earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God unfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. We are one holy family. We celebrate our oneness and honor our diversity. And remember, as we go forth this week, your affirmation goes here. So, your affirmation for this week is that as we walk through our day this week, remember to bob the light. Stretch a little bit higher to see that light shining back on you. God bless. Amen. And please welcome each other, but respect each other's wishes for physical contact. And we hope to see you here next week.